No, but
And one of the reasons that we are recording is that that Artemis will put this on YouTube so that, and we'll send this out to all the other registrants. We did have about 30 people that registered. So if they weren't able to attend tonight for whatever reason, we can send this out and they can still enjoy it and see it and hear about all these stories.
Yeah, so we had an amazing conversation about some venison meatballs and camping, or not camping, hiking in Maine. So go ahead and tell that story one more time.
Sure. So my name is Jeannie Cody, and I am the Artemis Ambassador for the state of Maine. Tara has come to join me here tonight. This is my hair salon, and I have it decked out with a very wilderness theme. There's lots of plants and just really fun stuff. I mean, a bear mount, a moose mount.
awesome mount.
And then I also created a room that is a wilderness learning space where if people are waiting for another person, they could go and sit in there and look at maps and different books about different things that have to do with the outdoors. So then Tara shared that I took her on a hike last winter and I made a nice game chili, and I had told them this, and I have this really nice crock warmer, I guess you could call it, and I had it in my bag, and everyone always laughs at me on how big of a bag.
She's this tiny little thing with this tiny little backpack,
but
and she shows up in this great big crock pot.
So I'm a Maine guide, and so I mean we provide people with food. I just love it, and so I definitely have bags that are probably bigger than most people would carry. But
So,
awesome.
So I will definitely need the recipe for the
so these are,
what'd you say, moose venison and beaver chili.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I mean, we went ice fishing and she's sitting here with, what were they, beaver kebabs or something?
Beaver backstrap.
Yeah, beaver backstrap. And
And
it's like, oh my God, it was so good. I'm like, I can't believe I'm eating beaver.
It's like, I'm a crazy beaver trapper.
100%.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
Well, Lisa, are you ready to get started with our recipes? I want to make sure we have time to get all through them.
Yes, we need to get started. Let's get
stuff.
started.
Perfect.
Well, first, I just want to welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. Hopefully, everybody here is familiar with Artemis. Jeannie talked about being an ambassador. I'm an ambassador in South Carolina. Elisa's ambassador in North Carolina. There's a couple others on here as well. If you're not familiar with Artemis, it is a sportswomen organization across the country. And the idea is that we want to build the community. We want people to go with. We want somebody to teach us how to hike and hunt and fish. And we want a community of women to do that. And in the same vein, we want more voices for conservation around the country, because if we know it and we love it, we will fight to protect it. So that's a big part of what Artemis is about. And a good way to connect people to the outdoors is through food, as you just talked about. So there's a phrase I've heard, venison diplomacy. You could add that to fish or beaver or whatever. But the idea that I could go out and do the hunting and take it to my neighbor and have them experience that in a way. Maybe they'll never hunt, but I bet they won't vote against hunting. So the idea that we're building that community in many different ways, I think is really, really valuable. So thanks for joining today. We are going to send an email out tomorrow to all the registrants that will have a link to this video. It will have the recipes from tonight, as well as kind of a little sheet kind of talking about some tips and tricks, as well as a resource sheet of different people that we find to be very useful, whether it be online or cookbooks. So don't feel like you have to take notes, just enjoy, but we will get those recipes out to you tomorrow. So the other thing is, so Elisa and I are going to go back and forth sharing recipes. If you have questions, type them into the chat. I'm going to be watching while she presents and vice versa. And we can kind of guide the conversation that way. If there was something you wanted to see that we're not showing, she and I are going to be using two different screens. We're both looking at kind of our computers now, and then we're going to have a phone set up that we'll turn on so you can see a little bit closer what we're doing. So if, you want to see that again, I'll be watching for her and can kind of stop her to do that. And then at the end, we'll chat and go from there. Does that sound good? See if there's anything else on my list there. I think that's it. Elisa, you got anything to add?
No. I'm super excited. So I'll introduce myself a tiny bit,
Yeah.
and Morgan, introduce yourself a little bit on your experience. I know you have a lot. I've only been hunting for 1 year, so not very long, which is why I am focusing on fish, because I know fish. So I will be focusing on fish, and I'm only going to do one recipe for fish. And then I am a huge proponent in teaching everyone how to actually like catfish. A lot of people don't like catfish. So I'm going to show you a few things to make catfish taste a little bit better. I am a fishing educator in North Carolina. So if you ever have any fishing questions, how to do things, anything like that, I will, I'm not going to say that I know everything. I know a fraction of everything, but I'm still here, and I'm always here for everyone. So I'm always here to serve, and I always want to help everyone get into fishing. And I'm slowly getting into hunting, and I promise it's going to get better.
So I am kind of the opposite. I have very little experience in angling. Fish hate me. I cannot catch trout in a stocked pond, which I hope Elisa has the opportunity to help me correct. But I do hunt pretty much anything that I can, because I enjoy it. And my favorite part of it is putting it in the freezer and putting it on the table. So I grew up in the South Carolina Low Country. That's where we hunt. We'll be deer hunting this weekend. Our season is already opened. In my freezer, if you listen to the Artemis podcast, that's the first opening question. It's what's in your freezer. My freezer's got everything from iguana to quail to fish to deer livers to deer hearts, bunch of venison. And then I made chorizo, and I've got some doves, and I probably got some turkey in there, and some duck and some geese. So I fill it up, and I love sharing it whenever I can. So this is right up, but I think both of our alleys. We love, as an educator, you're sharing, and as somebody likes to put people at my table, I do that as well. I don't work in the industry, so this is really my outlet for sharing this. So thank y'all so much for being here. So I think, Elisa, am I going to go first?
You're going to go first.
All right. I'm going to switch and kind of spotlight my screen on the phone. So let's see if we can make this work, y'all. Bear with us as we're not professionals.
I will tell you, I'm having a hard time figuring out where the spotlight button is. Oh, there it is. Spotlight for everyone. I got you.
There we go.
Got it.
Okay. So, and that's something that I do want to mention, that we are not professionals. So this is our home. This is our home kitchen. So we're not chefs. So sanitation is important, but I'm not getting into all that. This is how I cook at home.
Good for you. Good for you.
So the first recipe that I'm going to cook tonight is venison Milanese. And this is, I'm going to kind of see if I can get y'all to see it here. This is a recipe that adapted from the Meat Eater cookbook, which is one of my the favorites. He actually makes it with wild hog cutlets, but I make it with venison cube steak. This one we actually had processed, so it's already has a little bit of tenderization that's come up. A lot of times what I do is I have one of these things, which are awesome. There's a bunch of different ways to do it, but I tenderize it a little bit more, just because the way I eat these is usually like with my hands. I don't want to have to use a knife. So I really like these to be really thin. And the way I'm going to do this tonight, guys, I'm actually only going to show y'all like one fillet or one piece, because I'm saving the rest of these and doing them tomorrow. So, because the fried food doesn't hold that well. So what we're going to do first is to take the meat out. One thing I've done here, and you can see, is that it's probably been on the counter for maybe 20 or 30 minutes, getting the room temperature as well as draining. Especially because I'm frying it, I want that meat to be as dry as possible. So put a piece of plastic over it, and this is the best part. You beat the hell out of it. You want this to get about a 1/4 inch or so thin. And again, you can see how this would work with a variety of different meats, where it's like a turkey cutlet, hog, elk, whatever. And just beat the hell out of it there. And the reason that you do that is because it's kind of like a schnitzel, right? So you want it to be thin. I don't want it to see all the way through. I want it to have a little bit of texture there. All right, and here's my other trick on this. You want to cut them into generally this size piece, but my favorite thing to do, and this comes from my grandmother, is I always cut a little for the cook. Cut you a few little pieces that are going to fry up first. That way you can taste them as they go, okay? So the next step, I'm going to take y'all over here to the other side of my kitchen. We are going to batter these bad boys. I'm going to get this oil going. You want to choose a pan. I would normally probably use a pan this big. You can see me here. This big, because I want to get about a quarter, maybe half an inch oil in there. You don't want to get too big. You want to do it in small. Because I'm only doing one tonight, I'm just going to use this size pan. Okay. The recipe suggests different kinds of oil. I've used peanut oil. I didn't like that as well. So I will use olive oil. You want to get that pretty good and hot. You can see about how much I'm putting in there. All right. At least I can't see the questions if they pop up. So there's 3 things that we're going to batter this with. You got flour with some salt in it. And then we've got eggs with a little water or milk. And then panko or breadcrumbs. Panko I like. Sometimes I run out of it. I don't have it. But generally, I try to keep a container of breadcrumbs in the refrigerator. I feel like y'all are just looking at my boobs there. Breadcrumbs in the freezer, rather. I just make them. I have some extra bread. I'll make some. But the part that makes this dish so yummy, I think, is that you add Parmesan cheese to this. So you have Parmesan cheese and panko, which is such a nice touch. It really makes that the flavoring and the golden brown. Add a little salt to both the flour. Yeah.
Sorry. So
Yes.
there are no questions so far, but let's address that really quick. If you have any questions, we are here to see them. So ask your questions in the chat. Just type them up really quick in the chat. If you cannot ask them in the chat because you're on your phone, go ahead and stop us and say, hey, I have a quick question. So we can address those as we go. So we finally got a question in. Do you use fresh Parmesan?
I do. And I read somewhere, and I think this is fact, that like when you get free shredded cheese, either Parmesan or whatever, or cheddar, it's going to have like an extra layer or an extra chemical on there that keeps it from sticking together. Yes, I use it in a pinch, but for something like this, I usually do fresh Parmesan. I'll grate it myself. A lot of times I will actually grate Parmesan and keep it in a container, but I grated it, so I know it doesn't have that chemical on it. So yes, fresh Parmesan.
A microplane is your best friend.
Yes. Yes, it is. So this is getting pretty warm here. So I would probably also, we're in the South. We've got 2 Carolina girls here, or 2 girls in Carolina. No offense, Lisa. I would probably go ahead and salt and pepper these a little bit. Salt is flavor, right? It brings out the best in whatever you cook. So that's why salt was like the most important thing that you could have even back in the old days. So what we're going to do here is turn this down a little bit. I'm going to just kind of batter these 1, 2, 3. What you want to make sure you have ready next door is a pan over here. You can see I've got a cookie sheet. So when I take these out to fry, I will put them right here to cool. Okay. This isn't any rocket science, y'all. We've all fried something at some point. I'm telling you, next time you want to throw like a fancy dinner party or want it to appear a fancy dinner party, this is the thing to do. Get your little cook's cuts. My Gaga would be proud. All right, and these, because they're so thin, they really cook fast. So I'm going to drop those in and just let that cook. I'm going to move these out the way so y'all can watch this. And it's going to cook really fast. Generally, I'm waiting so I can start to see some of that, everybody calls it blood, but it's really myoglobin when it pops up in the top. It really doesn't take long at all. I'm going to drop one of these cooks in there so I can have this with my supper. You can see that starting to turn into a closer. Y'all can smell this. Oh, it's so good. See how golden brown that's getting? We'll let that go another 2 or 3 seconds there. Like it. You can very easily overcook this. But think about, we know deer meat is best when it is medium rare. So thin deer meat needs to really, you don't want to overcook it. You'll probably still eat it if it's overcooked because that happened to me the other night. But it's not quite as tender and good. I have it on about medium-high heat. Trying to get even on both sides there. So those little pieces are probably almost done. All right, I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna put these over here and just let that cool while I do the top. About those. All right. So the next piece of this recipe, which I think is the unique piece that my grandma never did with country style steak, is you take some arugula or some type of pepper greens. I just bought a store-bought. There. You do a little bit of sliced red onion. Again, I'm just making this for one because I'm only doing one tonight. Really thin sliced onion. That in there. And then we're going to take, I've got a lemon right here. And then we're going to add a little bit of good olive oil, kind of drizzle that in there. Like that. You're not seeing it because I don't have the camera in the right spot. And then I'm going to add some lemon juice. So you just toss all that together. Get it kind of good and coated. And you can add a little bit more onion if you wanted it. I usually like a little bit in there. And then take your delicious cutlet there, cube steak, however you want to do it, and literally just kind of top this on top of it like that. Then add a lemon wedge. And a lot of times even I'll squeeze more lemon on that hot fry like that. And y'all, that is so good. Like I can't even, it is delicious. It's crispy. It's tender. That is venison Milanese.
I
I'll tell you what,
have never.
I always
cooked
grill and roast
like
and
that.
it never works out great. Go ahead.
I seriously never have cooked like venison like that, and I'm so intrigued and can't wait to pound it up and do that.
I've cooked everything else that way, just never venison.
Yep,
Let's
I'm
go
super
back.
excited.
Chicken I do.
All right, my mouth is full. All right.
All right.
So I'm going to clean this up and pay attention. And Lisa's going to show us some smoked trout.
So, first and foremost, does anyone have any questions about that venison Milanese? And don't worry about taking notes. We will be sending the recipes out. That being said, take as many notes as you feel are necessary.
Oh, it's so
But
good. I
we-
eat the whole thing.
But we will be sending notes out. So, few seconds. See if there's any questions coming along.
All right, cool. Y'all
All
eat
right,
it and
I'm
enjoy.
gonna spotlight what I'm doing. Okay. One second, I will get there. There we go. Nope, that's the wrong one. Sorry, buddy, I messed up on this one already. Give me 1 second. Morgan, help me out here.
What you got?
I need to
You mean-
spotlight my phone and I can't seem to find it easily.
Okay, stand by. Let's see. Remove spotlight. Your phone is right here.
I can't see it, so I'm trying to figure out where it's at. Oh, there we
you
go.
are.
Look at that. All right, so, oop, sorry. Let's talk about smoking. Okay. So I'm going to talk about smoked trout, and I'm going to talk about smoked trout dip. So it's a very, very easy way to deal with trout, and I greatly enjoy smoked fish because it's a great way to preserve that fish for a little bit longer. If you have a bunch of frozen fish that's been sitting a little bit too long, it firms it up very nicely. And if you are going to a potluck or a party of some sort, it's a great dish to bring for people that may not like fish because everybody loves smoked trout, especially on some butter crackers. So I've actually smoked this trout ahead of time because it takes quite some time to do. This trout has been brined in a wet brine, so it sat for around 6 hours in a salt, brown sugar, and various spices, with dissolved in water. And it's been after you brine it, you really need to dry it. You need to create that kind of crust that goes over it, over the skin, over the body to create that layer that's going to adhere to the smoke, or the smoke is going to adhere to a little bit better. So brining for about 6 hours, drying in a refrigerator for another 4 to 6 hours, if not 8 hours after that. And then smoking for 3 to 4 hours, depending on the size of your fish. So, this is the fish I have. I've already, as you can see, there's already like pieces of fish here with bone and skin. So you peel the fish, and what type of wood do you use? Thank you so much, Heather. Alder is usually the preferred wood for smoking fish. Something very light flavored. You want something that's not going to overpower the fish itself, because fish itself, especially trout, is going to be very mild tasting. I don't care what anybody says, oh, fishy flavor, everything like that. When you put smoke to it, it's going to make it, it's going to take on any flavor that you give it. So a very mild flavor smoke. So alder, and any of the fruit woods. So apple, if you live down here in the South and you have peach orchards, maybe you cut down peaches and you have peach wood. Pecan is not a bad wood either. But you want something very mild flavored. This fish has been smoked in apple wood. You want to avoid things like oak and mesquite, anything that's going to be really small, strongly flavored. And once you smoke that fish and it's completely done through, you want to peel that skin back, which is what I've done for most of this. On this side, it's been peeled back as well. I will say that about 14 to 15-inch trout is going to be about a pound, but that also includes the organs and it includes the head as well. So once you catch your trout, you get it on ice or kill it and then get it on ice and then get it cleaned and everything like that. You're probably going to have less than, like if you have a 14-inch trout, it's not going to weigh that 1 pound anymore. So I did a good 16-inch trout, 16 to 18-inch trout that I had caught last year. It's been sitting in my freezer, cleaned. It's been sitting in my freezer for about 6 months. So I'm like, it's about time to deal with. And this is a great way to deal with that trout that's been sitting in the freezer a little bit too long. Fish usually does not do well in the freezer for super long. They were vacuum sealed, so that is my preferred method for storing fish. So vacuum seal them no longer than 6 months. They'll do very, very well. Outside of that, smoke them. It'll firm up the meat a little bit and it'll taste very, very good. So this one was, or these were smoked with alderwood. I needed a pound of fish for this recipe. So I've already taken care of some of that fish that I already had. So I have about a pound of meat there. And when you pull the meat off, it's going to be much firmer than you expect. So a lot of people say, well, it just comes right off the bones, but the larger the fish, the better it comes off the bones. And you can just kind of pull that meat off and get it into a food processor. So you can see there's some ribs in here. I'm going to try to avoid those bones. Does anyone have any questions as I do this? You don't need a fancy smoker, by the way, for this. I actually did not function with a smoker for a very, very long time. I've only had a grill. And something that I'll show you really quick. This is brand new because I realized that my last one was a little bit messed up. This is a smoke box that you can add to your grill. So on any grill, you essentially soak your wood chips, place it into the smoke box, and then have a burner on one side of your grill, and that's going to let you smoke your food. This is how I functioned for a very, very long time, and it's still how I function for a lot of the smoked food that I make. I make a lot of smoked chicken legs and turkey meat and stuff like that, but I'm not a huge fan of that really extreme smoke. I don't want it to taste like I'm biting into a campfire. So this is what I use when I want that light kiss of smoke. So soak the wood chips, place it in there. One side of your grill, whether it's charcoal or propane, you can essentially just utilize that one side to burn the wood chips and create that smoke flavor that you need in whatever food you're cooking without making it overpowering. It's also
Elisa, did you see the question? Can you use fish other than trout for this recipe?
Oh,
for this technique?
absolutely. Salmon. This is the smoked trout dip. Any mild flavor fish is going to work very well. Oh, there's my cat. Any mild flavored fish, she's like, oh, fish. I would love that. Mild flavored fish is going to be great. Gosh. So I think, I would avoid anything very strong flavored like bass or catfish, but I feel like panfish or perch or anything like that is also going to be very, very delicious with it. So the other thing you can use is one of these pellet burners. If you don't have I can't get past my cat. I'm so sorry. If you don't have one of those smoke boxes, or you want to try out one of these pellet containers as well, you may not have a pellet grill, but you can have the same effect with it with one of these. I purchased one of these on Amazon. You essentially fill it with pellets and light it. My problem with these is that you have to light it with something that's essentially a flamethrower to get it to actually burn the pellets at a high enough heat to create that smoke that you want. So I would suggest sticking with that smoke box. So I'm not going to pull this entirely apart because it does take some time, but just know sometimes when you pull them apart, you're going to get the ribs pulled out with it, and you can just pull those ribs out, put them off to the side. We don't want those. And anytime I'm pulling this fish apart, I do separate it in half so that I can see if there's any rib pieces. Like all three of these are still stuck to it, and pull them out. So, delicious option. Any other questions? I'm going to try to get through this very, very quickly. get as much of this as possible. Otherwise, I'm going to be eating it as smoked trout. You don't have to make smoked trout dip. You can just eat this. Lox and bagels, all that fun stuff. It's delicious. Absolutely delicious. And it's already been brined. So the brine that I had it in was about a gallon of water. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. Sorry, a gallon of water, a quarter cup of kosher salt, half a cup of brown sugar, a tablespoon of freshly ground black pepper, and 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, which give it that umami flavor that you want out of it. Ooh, I don't want all these bones. Look at all those bones. Like I said, it essentially just sat in that brine for 6 hours on my end, but you can put it for 8 hours. I like to do stuff overnight just to make my life a little bit easier. Goodness, this is falling apart all of a sudden. So
Lisa, is there a minimum that you would brine it for?
a minimum of 2 hours. Oh, look at all these bones.
I think a lot of people may be intimidated by that, but I mean, it just make sure you have time to do it, right? I mean, and then
So I try to plan it like everybody's like, well, you can plan it for exactly the amount of time that you need. I'm like, well, give yourself 3 days. 3 days ahead of time, kind of think about what you need to do and kind of go from there. It doesn't take that long, but it helps you kind of decide what needs to get done.
meditative, pulling the bones
Oh
out.
my gosh, I'm gonna eat some of this now.
And
Oh my gosh.
if y'all watch me, I just inhaled that piece of meat, so it happens.
So gosh,
That's
it's so
great.
good. All right. So that lovely fish is nice and clean. All right, so let's move this out of the way really quick. Okay. So food processor it goes. In our food processor, we're also going to add, so we're talking about that smoked trout dip, right? Again, great way to get people interested in fish. I'm going to put in 3/4 cup of sour cream and mix it all together because I don't have containers to put it all in. So 3/4 cup sour cream, 3/4 cup mayonnaise, a tablespoon of horseradish. So let's get that in there. It's a bit much in this tiny food processor, but that's what I got. You don't have to have a food processor for this. You can just use, or you can just chop everything very finely. You're gonna have some larger chunks in it, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think if you know what you're eating, it's fantastic. So a little full, but we got it. So I'm gonna get this on the food processor. So give me a hot minute, everyone.
I wonder if you could add more or less horseradish. Like if you wanted it spicy, you could probably add some pepper, some cayenne, sriracha, something to kind of gin it up a little bit if that was your thing.
I think if you wanted it more spicy, you should add oops, the wrong direction. You should add Tabasco or whichever chili sauce you want. Is that bothering everyone?
We can't even hear it.
Oh, great.
Magic of the internet, of Zoom.
Use a soft spatula to move it around.
had somebody bring this. I think it was turkey camp. Somebody brought some trout dip one time. It was some smoked fish dip. It was delicious. It was a great thing to like throw on the table with everybody with crackers, and not necessarily for hiking up a mountain. I wouldn't want to take mayonnaise too far without refrigeration, but
All right, to this, I'm going to add some, sorry if everybody didn't see that, cornichons or gherkins,
nice.
whichever you call it. I may or may not go on the heavy end because I really like dill pickles. So this is entirely to taste. I chop them a little bit ahead of time just so that they get incorporated a little bit better. And then I also chop a lot extra to add a little crunch because pickles are life. So finally, the other thing I'm going to add is fresh dill, but I couldn't find fresh dill, so I've got dried dill. For the dry to fresh conversion, your dry herbs are going to be about half of what the fresh herbs would be. So I would want 2 tablespoons of fresh herbs. This is going to be 1 tablespoon of fresh herbs plus extra because I feel, again, cook how you feel, you know? It's kind of like garlic. I like to add as much garlic as I feel should be in there. And I felt like a little extra dill should be in there this time. But as a guideline, around 6 gherkins for the actual blend. How you feel for the extra crunch. If you want, it's more for spice. And then for the dill, if you're going to use dry, use about a tablespoon. If you're going to use fresh, 2 tablespoons. And then you can also just kind of how you feel as well.
So the little ones that you chopped up, you don't put those in the blender. You add those at the end so they add the crunch.
Yes. So you want to add those finely chopped gherkins or cornichons, whichever you feel is the correct way to say it or correct name for it. Add those in at the very end, mix by hand in a bowl because it's going to be it's going to give you that crunch that everybody wants in a dip.
It's good stuff. And you're just kind of doing that until it's all kind of smooth and combined really well. What it looks like, yeah.
What was there a question? I'm so sorry. It's
No, I was just saying, like, how long? Like, I guess, I mean, we can obviously we've been here the whole time, but like doing it until it's kind of smooth and kind of well combined.
Yeah, so you want it to be well combined. As soon as I get this into the bowl, I will switch over to, I'll move the camera down so everyone can see. Oh, I'm so excited for this. Okay. One second.
I have a whole new appreciation of like watching the cooking shows. Like, how do they keep
Right?
it entertaining when you're just like doing stuff?
Everyone says to just smile a lot. All right. So as you can see, I made a mess. That's because I don't have a large food processor, but you know, I make it work. What I have.
That looks awesome.
Oh, I'm so excited. All right.
Next, so you have to catch me a fish and then I'll make it.
That trout. Look at you up here. I'm hoping to plan a fly fishing camp in April for everyone. So look forward to it. All right, so salt and pepper to taste. Well, there's probably a tad bit much, but it's okay.
I don't think there's dogs in like on the TV shows. You never see like somebody that's got a dog in their kitchen.
Oh, Rebel, come here. Come here, buddy.
Yeah.
See?
I think I've seen one show where there was a dog in the kitchen. Got two.
Can't deal.
They don't
There's
have that on
one.
HGTV.
This is also the one, or this is also about when you would add those chopped
The extras,
gherkins
yeah. That looks so good.
for that crunch.
I love that.
Again, I am a massive fan of dill pickle flavor, so I'm going to add as much as I feel like. And tell you the truth, I could probably add more, but that's okay.
That looks awesome.
Enjoy with your favorite cracker, enjoy with tortilla chips, whichever you choose. But I'm a huge fan of butter crackers with this, so
Yeah.
and I'm gonna eat this for the rest of the presentation.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next one. I'm trying to look at our time
Yeah.
here. We're at 15 more minutes left. We may run a little bit over
Goodness.
if we want to hit that catfish. So
Yeah, let's get it.
So let's everybody good? Any questions on the smoked trout? All right. I'm gonna switch here to all right, so play spotlight. We are going to next make chorizo sausage. So over the years I've been lucky enough to do on a number of hog hunts. In fact, like a bunch of our friends and family used to get together every January and we would hunt down the low country. We'd get as many as 8 to like 19 hogs, and then we would pile up and clean them all, and everybody would go home with shoulders and ham bones and back straps, and then we usually would make 100 pounds of sausage, which is so much fun to do when you have a group of people. We would have some people cutting and cleaning, and we'd have the big commercial size grinder, and then we'd have the vacuum sealer, and everybody had a little station, and it was great. Unfortunately, we aren't able to do that hunt anymore, and so I'm kind of I still want my sausage. That's the sausage that I want in my freezer. So I just recently purchased a KitchenAid mixer. I've had the mixer, but I bought the attachment to go on the KitchenAid mixer because it's a hell of a motor here. In order to do small batches. I had a friend that killed a hog and gave us the meat, and we were able to put it into 2-pound packages of just stuff to grind. And that's not worth getting the big commercial mixer out. I promise it is not worth all the mess. But I envision using this for, I want bacon burgers one night. I, want to add some mushrooms or something else to just a package of ground venison or pork. So I'm really excited about using this. So this is actually the second time I've used it. I made a test batch last week. Move, dog. So we're going to make chorizo sausage out of this hog. So the recipe that I am basing this on is from Hank Shaw. Hank Shaw and Holly Heiser have these amazing cookbooks. They are my favorites. Buck Moose, Duck Goose, Pheasant Quail, Cottontail, Hook, Line, and Supper. Or the 4, as well as Hunt, Gather, Cook. When you see on the resource list, I cite them all the time. He does a great job of explaining things. So I've adapted this. He did it with kind of a larger amount. The books are great, Heather. So I've kind of put this down to smaller for in the kitchen with my KitchenAid mixer. Okay. So before I get everything out, I want to talk a little bit about the spices. So I didn't grab one, but when we used to make the bulk sausage, we would get the packets of the company is AC Leg. It's a powder you buy it on Amazon or wherever. It's a great spice mix. We do like the Italian sausage or the hot or their chorizo. It's very good. And I would definitely do that when I was making 100 pounds. But for these small batches, this recipe, we ate it last week, and my husband and I both agreed. It's a different, it's like less spice and more flavor that makes any difference. Like there was really a distinction in the kind of spices that you got. Chorizo traditionally is made from a pig's egg. I ain't doing that, but this is but it's using some of these same spices. So when you get the recipe, it will have a couple things that are a little bit unusual. I did go to the Mexican or the Hispanic grocery store around the corner to shop for some of these things, but I later saw that they were in the Mexican or the Hispanic section in my regular grocery store, so they're not that foreign. But a couple of the things that I did find that ground chipotle is not something that I normally have. They had some different kinds of chili powder. And then this is one thing, again, you'll get the recipe with all this, that we will open. It is a paste that you can see there. That was the one thing I really had to search for. So as you go through the recipe, the first thing that you're going to do is all the metal grinding implements are in the freezer. I put them in there several hours ago. It's really important that you keep everything cold. And I'm going to go ahead and I went ahead and mixed up the spices for us. And that includes kosher salt, sugar, garlic cloves, oregano, cumin, chipotle powder, cayenne, chili powder. So those are the spices that are going to go in the meat. And I'll show you that in just a second. So listen, the meat that let's show you here. So the recipe that I have here is 2 pounds of wild hog meat to and then you could add half a pound of pork. I went ahead and cut this up into small pieces. You want to cut it up into smaller pieces that would fit into your grinder, whichever size you're doing. I bought some domestic pork fat to add to this if I wanted to, but as I got this chunk of meat out, this had look at the fat cap on this. So this meat had plenty of fat that we had left on there from the grind. So I kind of used my judgment in not adding that. One of the things I love about eating wild game is that it doesn't have the fat, and so it's not as greasy. So I'm perfectly fine with my sausage not being so greasy that I have to drain it. Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your meat and you're going to cube it up, as well as any fat that you choose to use. All these spices that you've mixed up, you're just simply going to add those to that. And you're going to mix them all up. It's real simple, just kind of mix them all up. May encourage you, if spices bother you, wear gloves, because they sometimes, you wipe your face or whatever. And then you're going to put this back in the freezer. You want this was in the fridge, but you want these to get really cold. Again, all of this works so much better with this machinery if it's cold. So I'm going to go take these and put this back in the freezer. Maybe. And through the magic of television, I'm going to have the other half, some that has already been in the freezer. This is almost frozen. It's really hard. Okay. I'm going to pop this up so you can see. Wait, now you're seeing my back door. Hold on. There you go. Y'all good? Good, Elisa?
All good.
So out of my freezer that's been here for a while, I'm getting all the pieces and parts for this grinding set, okay? So pretty simple. You can see, if y'all are familiar with you take the little piece out that goes right there and you stick this right in, and then you turn the wheel, tighten it up, okay? I'm gonna kind of assume that y'all know generally how these work. The motor is in here and it works it really good. We're gonna take this piece and stick it in there like this. You take the blade and stick it on there, and then you want to use your medium. This unit came with 3 different sizes. There's a large, a medium, and a small. You want to use the medium. The large is too big, and the small, I tried it, and the fat just gets so stuck in there, it's not even worth messing with. Y'all, this is so cold. It's important that it's cold, but it is very cold. It almost hurts your hands. All right, so you want to tighten everything up. All right. And you want something to catch the sausage when it comes out, okay? They usually come with this. Why is it important that it's cold? Because you've got so much energy and like friction that's caused with the actual blades turning. On our bigger unit, when we do 100 pounds, well, there's actually it comes with a cold pack that goes around it to kind of keep it cold. Because if not, it gets hot, it starts cooking, it melts the fat, it changes the consistency. That's my unofficial response.
It also, so if it's not cold, the fat will get a lot softer and it's going to catch in it as well. So the meat is not going to grind as well.
Yeah. So I'm going to turn this on. We'll see how y'all can hear it. I want y'all to see the sausage come out here. Sorry, y'all. Don't mean to be making you sick. I just want to make sure you get a good view. So this comes with a little plunger thing that you can use, but just be careful not to go down too hard because you'll slice the end of the plastic off and then you've got a piece of plastic stuck in your sausage, which is not necessarily the most appetizing. So that's the other thing I'm really excited about using this small unit is that when we do 100 pounds, you usually got to stop somewhere along the way, not only because you're exhausted, but because it gets warm and you need to cool everything down again. These small batches, I think, are going to be much more, it'll be neat to kind of experiment, you know, try this versus try that, and really kind of play with some different recipes. I'm just going to do this kind of half batch to show you. And I've got it about on a 3. That's what it recommended. Just going to run that through. All right, let's just assume that's done. And a lot of times I would open this up, pull it out, pull all the good stuff out, make sure it's in there. All right, the other piece of this recipe, when you get online, one of the things that I love about Hank Shaw is that he does have a great website and he has a lot of head notes. Like he has a lot of explanation of, you really don't need this, or maybe you could substitute this, or if you want to do it this way. Traditionally, chorizo is in casings. I've done casing sausage. It's a pain in the butt and it never works out well. And it's probably because I'm not doing it right. I find that we eat more sausage that's not in casings. So in his head notes, and this is what this recipe that I'll send you, it specifically is for the chorizo sausage that is not going to be casing. So this is something I'm just going to put in 1 pound bags and throw in the freezer and I'll take out appropriately. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this this paste, about a tablespoon of it. You can see I'm measuring expertly here. And we're going to add white wine vinegar. In his in the head notes, this again is just for uncased. If you're not doing if you're doing casings, then you would do water instead. But if you're doing uncased, then this helps it kind of stick together a little bit. And this, I think also, you can see the pretty color of this stuff. Kind of combining this together here. So one step I'm not going to do is you take this and you make it, we put it back in the refrigerator so it gets cold. So let's just pretend that it's cold, okay? So the nice thing about doing this, I think, in this mixing bowl here is what the next step, pretty easy, is I put the mixer, you can see there, put this thing back on my mixer here. And we're going to add, because of the way I'm doing this, I'm only going to add half of this. because I'll have to do the other half after we get done. So I add the other half. I add the vinegar and the anchovy paste, and then you just mix it real good. Okay, just turn it on and just get it good and mixed all the way in there. Still coming out. Okay, so let's assume it's mixed. So, and here's what is not in his recipe, but I have found to be my thing. We have made batches and batches of sausage, and if we didn't grind it twice or we've done something different, the fat ends up, I call them little tic tacs. They're little tic tacs of fat all throughout the meat. The flavor is delicious, but the mouthfeel of biting down on one of those little tic tacs is so off-putting. I still eat it because I'll just like grind it and I pick it off. Or my trick is I'll serve it with something that I'm adding onions to, and normally nobody ever knows the difference. But the way to prevent that is to double grind this. So what I'm actually going to do is I would take all this, put it back through the grinder. Same, I wouldn't go smaller, because remember the smaller one, I tried that. The fat just gets so gummed up. So you do want to make sure that everything is still cold. Like if for some reason that had taken me a lot longer, I probably would pause, clean up, put everything back in the freezer for another 20, 30 minutes. But I think we're still good. So I'm gonna cut. You have to take the grinder off to do this. And we will grind again. Get this going down in here. So you can see like the consistency is going to be a little bit more homogeneous. Is that the right word? Is it going to be more?
I agree. I think homogeneous is a great word.
I think some of that fat will grind again and kind of get out. So I think it just does a better job combining it. Now, for this batch, because I'm going to do the other one here in a little bit, it's going to get ground a bunch. But what I like about this sausage too, and when you see the picture, it's very fine. Like it's not a chunky sausage, which is kind of nice. So I think in the interest of time, I'm not going to fry any up because everybody knows how to fry sausage. But the ways to use this, chorizo and eggs is amazing. Just do them separately, do them together. Add some hash brown, add some onions. I've done chorizo quiche, chorizo tacos. Do a queso dip and add chorizo. Oh my gosh. So this is just a great way, I think, to use some interesting spices. You could do venison, you could do pork. I think it would turn out great. In fact, Hank Shaw's recipe is actually venison. So
Tell you what,
There you
Morgan, if I'm able to get a javelina in Arizona this year,
yeah,
you're close enough to me. We're gonna have some fun.
absolutely. I have tons of friends. I'm like, look, if you go kill some hogs, come to the house. I'll set up in the garage and we can make some sausage. So let me take my spotlight off here. So encourage you to play with that. I am so excited about this small. There's so many small batch sausages that it will take a little I think tweaking to get some of the recipes, because most recipes are I think at a smaller or a larger scale. But I think this is going to be a lot of fun, and I've been very pleased. They have metal and plastic, but I think the metal is the way to go. You just can't put it in the dishwasher. I've done that. You'll be very upset because the anodization, whatever it is, it messes up and you can't use it anymore. So just know that.
All right, so we're gonna move on to, thank you so much, Morgan. I'm so sorry. We're trying to finish this up on time and it's not gonna happen. We're already 3 minutes past, but I'm trying to spotlight myself and I can't seem to do it on my phone.
I got you.
Thank you. I don't know what happened.
And if y'all need to go, just know that we're recording this. So, oh, and it won't let me stop spotlight your phone. Then? No.
Weird, right? Maybe if I turn my video on, maybe
Yeah,
it'll
turn your
work.
video on. There we go.
Ha ha ha.
There we go.
That was the
Go
problem.
for it. All right, I'm gonna mute
All right,
myself and
so-
send myself up.
Apparently that was the problem. All right, so it is my mission to get everybody to try catfish. A lot of people don't like catfish because it tastes muddy to them, and I agree. I've had catfish that taste like they came straight out of the ground. I don't like it. Not a fan. I'm originally from California. We don't eat muddy fish out there. So, uh let's look at this beautiful channel cat that I caught yesterday, specifically for you, for all of you. A delicious fish, a staple. It is such a good fish to have, but a lot of people don't really understand it. So let's talk about how we deal with it. You know it's fresh because it still has rigor mortis. It's still nice and stiff. So the first thing I do, I catch the fish, I dispatch it immediately. I want it to die very quickly, either to a blow to the head or spiking the brain, which is about right there. So I'll take a knife and I'll spike it, or at an actual spike, and put it out as quickly as I possibly can. That's going to reduce the stress of the fish. It's going to reduce any issues that you have associated with it. As you can tell, I've kind of been cleaning fish outside of this because I caught two fish. This is the second one that I caught, and I'm going to clean it for you. The other thing I'll do once I catch it and after I kill it, if you look on the underside of them, you can see this is severed. So I cut this area right here, right where the gills come together. I'm going to cut deep into this fish. So what you want to do with fish is you either want to bleed them. Well, so I take back. You want to bleed them no matter what. And the way to bleed them as quickly as possible is to pull the gills out. So as you can see, this fish still has its gills. You want to pull its gills out, or you want to cut the ventral artery. So the ventral artery is going to run in this area. So essentially you just take a good pair of scissors or shears, and where the gills come together right here, that's where I'm going to cut. I'm going to cut deep, and I'm going to bleed the fish. Once I cut that area, I put the fish into a cooler or a bucket of ice water so that it can bleed a little bit faster. The fish is already dead, so it'll bleed very, very easily. Once it bleeds for a good 15-20 minutes, I put it into a cooler full of ice. It's still going to bleed a little bit, but a lot of it has let out by that time. Bleeding that fish is going to just make the fish taste a little bit cleaner. So that's the first step to making a catfish taste good, is to bleed it and get it on ice as quickly as possible. Okay. A lot of companies that serve catfish, like a lot of restaurants that purchase catfish, they purchase catfish that has not been killed quickly and has not been bled because they haven't bled the catfish because they're usually in such a large capacity that they don't have the time to actually do it. Next thing I need is a nice sharp fillet knife. And you can see there's the dorsal right there. With a catfish, you have bone right here up to this area right here behind the gill. So you have a nice big bone right there. You follow it up and you have bone along here. So I want to create a cut that follows the edges of this bone right about this direction. Okay, I'm trying to make this easy. I'm trying. So from the edge or the front edge of that dorsal, so there's that dorsal fin right there. From that front edge of that dorsal down along the bone right here and right here. Quick cut. Okay, so we're going to fillet this fish without gutting it, by the way. Don't gut your catfish, it usually smells. I'm also going to make a cut down by the tail. Nice, sharp fillet knife. Along that back, okay, right here. Cut down that way. Whoop. slipped. I have a slippery catfish. There we go. Come along the back. Okay. So we cut through the skin right here and essentially fillet with the tip of your knife along the spine. You're going to hear, as you come down, you're going to hear that spine. So let me know if you hear this. You can hear me cutting through that spine. And then down the ribs. Follow that all the way down. Once I get down the belly, I just kind of separate that skin. Okay, so we have a fillet, right? This is the tail end right here. I'm going to make a diagonal incision down. Sorry, I come from a medical field way far back, so if I say incision, it's not on purpose. I can't help myself sometimes. So I'm going to remove the skin. A lot of people, when they remove the skin, they have these pliers essentially that grip onto the skin and pull the skin back while the flesh is still on the fish. You can do that. It's nothing wrong with that. It's a great, effective way of skinning the catfish. Not a huge fan of that personally, so I'm going to show you how to remove the skin from this fillet. So I made a cut down by the tail, down to the skin, but I didn't go all the way through. So you can see the skin is still in there, okay? Hold your knife at a 45-degree angle, kind of go down a tiny bit with a sawing motion, then grab the skin, start pulling the skin through while making that sawing motion. You may have to change the angle of your cut a little bit, but this is how you're going to remove the skin from that catfish. Okay, look at that. Perfect, if I don't say so myself. That's the skin right there. I'm not going to eat that. And there's your fillet, skinned, ready for cooking. Now, how do we get rid of that muddy flavor in that fish? So first step was to actually, sorry for the mess. First step was to bleed the fish, get as much blood out of it as quickly as possible to reduce the muddy flavor out of it. The second step is to remove that lateral line. So you can see that dark flesh along that lateral line. It's where the muscle from the top of that fish meets with the bottom of that fish, right? So top and bottom. This, a lot of people call it the mud vein. So a lot of people refer to it as the mud vein. So a lot of times, now this is a fairly small fish, so these are going to be fairly small cuts, but I'll usually just cut that out entirely. So there's that first cut to remove the top half. And there's that bottom cut. Just taking out that lateral line. That lateral line is what's causing that muddy flavor for the most part. I would say the other reason that your fish tastes muddy is because you didn't bleed it out appropriately. So that dark meat right there from the lateral line, that's also that muddy flavor. The last step for me is to go through and try to scrape off any fat. Of course, I was only able to catch small catfish that don't have a lot of fat on them. So I don't have an example to show you, but it's just like any other animal. That fat is softer feeling. So scrape off any fat. That fat is going to be fairly muddy tasting as well, because that's usually where everything kind of accumulates in a fish. So if there's anything, whatever they're eating, the flavor is going to accumulate in that fat first and foremost. So I will take this, I will actually turn it into nuggets. So I'm going to chop it into little pieces, bread it. My favorite breading is the Louisiana beer batter. It's the wet batter version of the Louisiana beer batter, or Louisiana fish fry batters. It's delicious. And then I'll fry it up really quick and be very southern about it. Any questions? I'm gonna wash my hands. Well, before I wash my hands, I'm gonna cut the other side of this fish, actually, now that I think about it.
You made that look easy.
I mean, it's not terribly hard. It takes practice though. I definitely recommend a lot of practice. And understanding that like your knife is your best friend. So especially the tip of that knife, I'm gonna have a hard time with that one. The tip of your knife is the best way to go about it.
How would you put that in the freezer? So that fish hasn't been frozen. You caught it yesterday.
Yeah.
So how would you package that for the freezer?
This guy, so I have a women's fly fishing camp coming up tomorrow. And so this guy is going into a vacuum sealer and directly into the freezer for future catfish nuggets.
So you don't have to pack it. Like some people, like I have a Ziploc bag full of some mystery fish that's done in water, and you just vacuum seal it. Do you pack anything in water ever?
I personally don't. I usually just vacuum seal it and then just make a plan to make sure I eat it within 6 months. Any longer than that, and it's just a mushy mess.
Yeah.
So frying this is going to be great because it's going to help firm up that meat, but again, you want to try to find recipes that are going to help you firm meat when you freeze it, fish meat when you freeze it. So luckily catfish is nice and firm as long as it's fresh and it hasn't been sitting forever. So it'll be great as fried catfish nuggets in the future.
Delicious.
And you can hear it like as I go down that rib. There's that rib cage right there.
Awesome. Well, if there's any questions for Elisa on that, we're kind of be cognizant of everyone's time. We're 15 minutes over, but hopefully y'all have had as much fun as we've had. Any other questions for her?
My hands are fishy, so I can't check the chat.
Yeah, I'm looking, so we're good. So I do sound like a TV host. We hope you've had as much fun as we've had. We do hope this has been fun. I mean, I think you can tell both of us enjoy sharing this, and it's by the virtue of y'all showing up, we appreciate it. Artemis is about building community, and what better way to do it than to sit around the table. So thank you for joining us. We're going to go ahead and end the recording. If you want to sit and hang out and talk for a little bit, that would be great, but I've got dishes to do.
Same. I gotta finish this catfish. My goodness.
All right.
There we go.
I am